I get the question a lot, when does the offboarding process start? And this might be controversial, but I'm constantly offboarding my employees. And hear me out, because I know that sounds a little dark and a little crazy, but you never know when one of your employees may find their dream role. And as much as you want to wish that you can provide the dream role for every single one of your employees, that's just honestly probably not the case. And I'm a big fan of being prepared. So I think it's important to ask your employees to constantly be writing down what they're doing, documenting best practices, how they're doing what they're doing, and making sure that stays up to date. Because when they give notice, which is typically about 2 weeks, maybe 4 if you're lucky for a leader or an executive role, you're stuck scrambling, trying to figure out all of the amazing things that they're doing and how to take all of that knowledge out of their brain and help cross-train someone else. So I find an iterative approach over time before you actually need to offboard someone is actually the best approach. But once someone has given notice, that's what triggers our formal offboarding process. And if someone gives notice, it's typically 2 weeks. And so we have an Asana 2-week task list where we break down everything that needs to be done from the moment they give notice through their final exit. And for me, there are 2 big themes. One is making sure that they have the best possible experience. When possible, they can control the narrative and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, here's why I'm doing it, and making sure that they're maintaining the relationships with the team and with our leaders and ensuring that they're leaving on really good terms. The other is making sure that they're documenting anything and everything that they're doing so the team that they're leaving behind won't have any gaps that are missing once they're gone, because I'm sure that there will be. But if possible, trying to document all of those pieces. So what's the difference between involuntary and voluntary termination? It's pretty simple. Involuntary is when the employer tells an employee that they are no longer a fit for their business, whether that's for values or performance reasons, and chooses to let them go. Typically, that's a day of termination. Voluntary termination is where an employee decides that this is no longer the right fit for them, and they will typically give 2 weeks or more notice to their employer as they start to transition out of their role and prepare for their next role. Involuntary terminations require a lot of preparation on the front end before you actually let someone go, because once you say that someone is no longer a fit for your team and you've chosen to terminate them, typically it's hard to get any information out of that person, and typically the best you get is their assets, their credentials, and you walk them out the door or turn off their Zoom in this day and age. For a voluntary termination, while you want them to be documenting things throughout their employment, you do have time in that 2 to 4 week window where you can ask them to finish up any work they're doing and then spend the most of that time documenting what they're doing, best practices, suggestions, where everything lives, so their team, when that person leaves, isn't stuck scrambling. So it's doing them a solid. How can we help prepare the team that they're leaving behind to be successful? Offboarding is tough, but it doesn't have to be, as long as you're thoughtful about your process and ensuring that you're documenting everything that you can. Moving forward, when you're running offboarding, just make sure that you're doing everything you can to ensure that the employee leaving is having a great experience. And honestly, consider it an honor that someone would want to take an employee from your culture and from what you've done to build an incredible team and group of values-aligned people.